Welcome to Tape Deck. Gonna have a creative conversation.
Hello, welcome to Tape Deck. This is a podcast where I, artist writer Declan Shelby, have a creative conversation, namely with a past or present collaborator in comics. My collabro this episode is Nate Cosby. Nate is an Eisner and Harvey Award-nominated writer, editor, packager, and producer who founded LINNEY Incorporated on the principle that the best ideas win. Great comics come from the collaboration of great creators, and Nate's proven that through his work with teams on Thor The Mighty Avenger, Cowboy, Flash Gordon, James Bond, Agents of Atlas, Red Sonja, Jim Henson's The Storyteller, Buddy Cops, World War Hulk, Spider-Man Loves Mary Jane, and lots more. Nate and I work together on Thundercats and Terminator at the moment, and I'm really happy to have an editor here to talk to. Nate, welcome to Tape Deck.
I can't believe we're doing this again.
I know. We were like 15 minutes in, and I realized we weren't recording because I haven't just put out a recorded episode. Normally it's just live, so I'm used to just going right into it. But
this is why editors are important. If you'd had an editor from the very beginning, you could have had somebody make sure, are you pressing recording? But no.
Well, actually, I did have an editor on. It was you, and you didn't ask if we're recording.
And
so
now
if anything,
I get to do my favorite. I'm just excited that I get to talk about myself double the amount of time. This is wonderful.
Yeah. So I'm not going to. I won't get exhausted as early this time. Okay. So right. Okay. Starting all over again. And again, I'm sorry, Nate. I'm very.
Oh, we're starting over again. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Declan Shelby. This is Welcome to Tape Deck. This is where we talk about interesting people. Let me introduce you to Nate Cosby. You messed up. I just realized Mary Jane.
I forgot to hit record again. Oh no.
Ah, okay, good. Right. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, Nate. Thanks for coming.
You're welcome.
I will try and make my answers as simple as, or my questions as simple as possible. So I know you started at Dynamite as a writer because you told me 15 minutes ago before I hit the record button. But I'm interested in like what a packager is. I don't think anyone's ever like credited themselves as that. And is there a difference between a packager and an editor? So I'm curious, did you start editing at Dynamite and then change the relationship, or like, I'm curious what that is because you're the only person I know that kind of has that definition.
Yeah. So when I first started working with Dynamite, it was for a couple scripting things, and then there was some outsourcing of editing that they asked if I'd be interested in, and I was like, there was like a Flash Gordon license. They'd just gotten the Gold Key license with like Turok and Magnus Robot Fighter, things like that. But I wasn't really interested in doing like a full-time job because I had other projects boiling. I was writing some stuff. I was editing some stuff for other companies. And so it was basically just going to be like, well, I've got my own production company, LINNEY Inc. Can I just like be a satellite production company? And what I essentially did and kind of still do is I take up, I figure out what property I'm going to work on. I figure out the tone and what I muse basically about it for a little while. And then I determine the creative team that I would like to have around it, or in it. And then I bring them in, put the book together and everything, and I deliver it to Dynamite. So I am in essence packaging a story for them. And I give it to them. So,
is the distinction then that like you have a bit more autonomy over what you do and don't, like if you were, an employee editor, you just kind of have to take what's assigned to you, or do you have a bit more autonomy as regards like, no, I want to do Flash Gordon, and I really want. And I actually kind of mad to think about this. There was a Flash Gordon book written by Jeff Parker, drawn by Evan Shane, or colored by Jordi Belair. I'm like, holy crap.
Letter by Simon Nolan. Yeah.
Yes, sorry, I couldn't remember the letter. Sorry, but like, I mean, like that was early in Doc's career. Jeff was probably more established. Jordi was, I'd say, reasonably established back then. But like, that's one hell of a package. Is that something you were able to do under LINNEY? Under your company, more so than say if you were an editor at Dynamite?
Yeah. That was that I put that team together. It came as a package deal, and it ended up working out really well. I packaged I packaged that creative team together with all the cover artists, including Mark Lamming. And I did the same thing with Gold Key, like Greg Pak and Mirko Kolak on Turok, Fred Van Lente and Corey Smith on Magnus Robot Fighter. It's like I put as an editor, I think the best thing that you can possibly do is bring on the best creators around in the book and around the project to make the best product possible. If I am an editor and I am given I'm given a character and then I am given the creative team, I am essentially a secretary. I am a traffic cop. And that is a part of editing that you definitely need to do that. You definitely need to keep the day-to-day, do the budgets, do the schedule, all that kind of stuff. But that's not the kind of editor I am. Not that writers and artists and colorists and letterers are groceries, but metaphorically, I got to pick the groceries to make the right stew. So
there's like the packaging aspect of it, means you can go to instead of going to, no one's going to get this. Instead of going to Tesco's, you're going to Marks and Spencer's. This is going to be very limited. Instead of going to like a regular, you're putting yourself in a position where you can kind of be more selective about who you're going to bring on, as opposed to if you're packaging something you can edit, that'll be a better product than just editing something with raw materials given to you. Is that fair?
Yeah. I mean, I there is no project that I work on where I'm dictated creative. I don't. That's just not really my thing. I can't remember the.
I'm sure like budgets and things like that. There's people you can't use because they're too expensive and things like that.
But budget is one of my favorite kind of problems to solve. I when I see a budget, I don't think of a problem. I see a challenge, and it's like, yeah, I can't afford Ed Brubaker to write everything, but that's a given. Like if I had $1 million a page, I probably couldn't get Ed to work on it. And I can't afford to like have you draw everything, even if I would like to. So it's like I can't make like the highest end, most expensive things, but I'm given a budget. I'm told my limits, and then I go about finding the best creative team that I can fit within those limits. And then it's not just budget; it's also scheduling. It's finding out like, hey, what's your window of time that you can work on this, whether it's 4 issues, 5 issues, 6 issues a year. Something like that. It's air traffic control in a lot of ways. Like you're trying to land a lot of planes and make everything sync up and work right. But I love that. It's like it's not the best team in the entire world. It's like the right team for this particular project at this particular time. I'm really interested in, and I don't know. I just get a charge out of putting those kinds of teams together. But you did say like. I was remembering it's like it has not happened very much recently, definitely not since I left Marvel, that anybody has dictated a creative team to me. And the only one recently, someone did try to get me to move somebody off of a project and bring another one on. I just left the project. So it's like that wasn't terribly hard.
You can do that as a packager as opposed to if you were
not a Dynamite, at Elsewhere. I was working on another thing where it was like we'd like to go with somebody else. Like I wish you luck, and I left. It's like
that must be, but though the advantage of like being like say a packager is you have an autonomy over the stuff that you do and don't take.
Yeah. I mean, and it's a choice. I mean, I could look. There have been times where people have come to me with a character, and it's like we were thinking of this writer or this artist or this letterer happens to love. It happened recently with Darkwing Duck, where I hired writer Daniel Kibblesmith because he DM'd me on Twitter. The last good thing that happened via Twitter. He said, like, I love Darkwing if there's anything. And I said, there happens to be, I'm working on a new Darkwing, and I had no idea that you wrote Howard the Duck. I should have known. But yeah, he really wanted to do it. And we were able to get the right creative team. But then also, as I was looking for a creative team elsewhere, I was told that the letterer Fabio Amelia loves Darkwing, and if I wanted a specific cover that I should also hire this letterer. And it's like, that wasn't my idea, but sure, absolutely. I would love to hire this letterer. So it's like, it's not really like a power trip thing with me. It's not like I have to make the decision to control the thing. I want suggestions. I think I tell you all the time. It's like, if you've got any artist that you got your eye on, please send them to me. I love to help people break in. I love to know when people that I know that are great have an opening in their schedule. So I just love putting a book together and seeing it through. Those to me,
I think
that's an organic process. There is not just like, okay, have you got the creative team for me? Okay, good. Now I will edit. Like that's not.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's part of like why I like working with you, is because you've involved me in that process of like, what do you want it to look like, what kind of stuff, and we might have a back and forth or whatnot. But I like building a book if I'm working on something, not just writing it. Probably from my background as an artist or whatnot, but I like to project a certain kind of feel of a project, and that's what I like working with you. Is you've given me like that space to kind of inject as much of myself as I want.
And I especially love working with writers that maybe began as artists. It's like you, of course, but Jeff Parker as well. It's like
what is it about what is about artists/writer artists that kind of pique your interest?
There is less barrier as far as understanding the value of the different disciplines in comics. It's like, I think that there's a reason that something like Bone is so incredible to me, that something like The Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck by Don Rosa is so incredible to me. And that's because it was one person putting all of that together. That's not always the case, because great writers can't always draw, great artists can't always write, great colorists, et cetera. But when you've got someone that is coming from a different discipline and has and is curious about a different discipline, it makes the barriers of possibility. It meshes the assembly line in a more organic kind of way. It's not just, I've worked in a lot of projects where somebody writes a script, and as far as the writer is concerned, that job is done. Here, do whatever the fuck you want to with this script. And then the artist is like, there, now my art is done. I don't care how it's colored or whatever. The colorist comes in, does their job. My color is done. And then the letterer gets about 20 minutes to letter it at the very end before it goes to press, and then it's done. I think that process, pardon my French, stinks. I think the best thing to do is to start with ideas. As we're coming up with ideas, think about what would that look like. And we did with this with Thundercats, right? Where very early on, I think I suggested Drew Moss to you, just because honestly his art kind of reminded me of yours, and that's I thought that was a good idea to like be able to envision like, oh, here's what it would look like. And then bringing him in, having him do character designs while you're also we're forming the story together, and then making sure we got the right coloring team. Again, Martina is somebody that like you colored your covers, and then I showed those to Martina, and then she was able to use that kind of as the template for how the book.
Which is great.
Would be colored. Yeah. And that would not happen if you were not also the cover artist and also, curious about the world building and stuff like that. So it's all of a piece. And I'm there helping move all of this along and make sure everybody's in communication and we're building something together, as opposed to, some other way where everything is bifurcated, everything is sectioned off, and you may end up with a good book. I'm not saying it's the only good way to do it. I'm just saying it's the way I do it.
And like some amazing comics have definitely been made that way, So it's not the case it can't be done for sure. But I know what you mean. Like like when I'm working on a cover for a story that I would be writing, there is a weird kind of it happened with Time Before Time, which was a creator-owned book, but like it's happening on Terminator and on Thundercats, where as I'm drawing the thing, stuff can kind of like bleed out, and that'll go into the script, and it's very rare to have something that works that way. But yeah, I will get to Thundercats, but when I cover some other ground first. You told me that books you are currently editing that you can talk about are Thundercats, Thundercats Lost, Thundercats / Powerpuff Girls, Silverhawks, Powerpuff Girls, Gargoyles, Demona, Darkwing Duck, DuckTales, Zootopia, and Terminator. And I know of at least 3 other books that you don't have on that list. What the hell? Like,
that's about a quarter of my current portfolio. Yeah.
I mean, no, some of those are, I'm sure, one-shots or miniseries. Some are ongoing. I mean, actually,
no, those are all at least miniseries or ongoings. Yeah.
Yeah, most of it's probably 50. Like Thundercats Powerpuff Girls is a one-shot, right?
No, it's 4 issues.
Oh, is it? Oh, I thought that was just for New Comic Book Day.
No. Oh, yeah. Well, it's 5 issues technically. That's the 0 issue, and then
very good
miniseries after.
But probably similar to Paulina as well, as an artist who's writing as well. Like, I mean, I quite like. There's not a lot of editors.
You may notice it is no accident that I have a lot of artists that either they are relatively new. Paulina's written a lot, so it's not that I didn't break her or anything, but I've given her a lot of opportunities because every time she turns in a script, I think it's fantastic. And I think she's only growing as she's learning her instrument in a way. It's like she's a great artist and she's a great writer. Yeah. I asked Sue Lee to write and draw Disney villains Maleficent, Sweeney Boo. I asked to write Cruella de Vil. I've got some other Disney things where I'm asking artists to write their own thing.
I mean, I think you've got a bit of an edge there. Not a lot of people like it's something I've said probably a few times on this podcast that I think like a lot of editors are just so busy getting books out the door that they'll see a thing and they'll think that's a person that can do this because I've seen them do it. I mean, it's just natural, people like if you're doing horror stuff, somebody will think of you for a horror book. But I remember Will Moss offered me to write and draw a Nick Fury serial. And, the reason he thought of me is because he liked my art on Injection, and I remember just thinking like, wow, that's an extra step of imagination to like see potential and like give somebody an opportunity that way. I don't think a lot of editors do that, and it's not a slight on editors. I think it's just because you're trying to make creative decisions all the time, and there's so many books to be done. It's hard to kind of like sit back and go, what would be a little bit more interesting. Also, if something's unproven, you've run the risk of it falling flat on your face. So you're often going to go with proven examples of things. But I do think that is one cool thing about one cool thing about you is that how you've given.
I just honestly think that like that part of my creative process it's kind of the only way that I would have the engine to make this many books, which is basically just like curiosity. It's like, wow, what if I like, what shape do I want this to take? Like, what do I want this to feel like? And I don't want it to feel like the same thing over and over again. It's like, that is boring to me. I don't make donuts, I make comics, and I want each comic to feel bespoke. I want it to feel custom. I want it to feel different each time. And the way to do that is to put new life into it. And so like I'm constantly looking for life. I'm looking for drive. I'm looking for what interests me. And that is not, sometimes that is like we'll bring up Jeff Parker the 5th time this episode is like Jeff,
the previous 3 times I wasn't recording the previous 3 times.
Your point. Yeah. But whenever I think of like, man, who could inject life in this project? Like, well, Jeff. I mean, obviously Jeff. But it's just because he has a way of writing. He just writes just slightly left of center. It's just like 4% a little different than you would think. Like, oh, he worded that or he plotted that kind of different, that kind of thing. And I'm always looking for that. I'm always motivated by looking at like, okay, so I've got this thing that's traditionally this. Well, what would I want this to be? I mean, there was like the one shot of James Bond that you and I did with M, where I was like, that could be, okay, so I've got a one shot. I've got to fill it. Maybe I want it to be a supporting character. Okay, so, well, I think Declan really likes James Bond, and what could this be? And then you came very early with the idea of setting it, around the Troubles, and I was like, well, that's great, and that idea never would have been part of a James Bond book, and it never would have featured him in that kind of way had I not just kind of like taken 10 minutes to just sort of like, there we go. If I had not just like taken a second to be like, who would bring an interesting thing? You know, it's like, what would an interesting sort of vibe? Who's got a particular idea? And so I love that. I mean, it's like I could make 4 times as many comics as I currently make if I turn my creative mind off and just like make stuff, but I would have no motivation to do that, you know? So I just like making cool, interesting, creative comics.
So what is it that, say, you know, when Thundercats came up, so we'd done a James Bond story once, but that was years ago. You know, and I'd probably written other stuff in the meantime, but what made you think of like me for that? I remember when the email came, I was like, well, I think, as I've said, but I was really, really drunk when you sent the email. So I was like,
can't believe it.
Yeah, I had to woke up the next day. I'm like, did I take a Thundercats book? But
it was 8:45 in the morning. You were super drunk.
Yeah. But what was like? I mean, I'm curious. Like, I clearly, like, I'm glad you reached out to me. But what was it as an example of like, here's a property. What am I going to do with it? Well, like, what were your first thoughts? I mean, I wouldn't even expect I was your first thought. But you're given that property. What are your first? Where you're like, what am I going to do with this?
You were my first thought, honestly. It was you and another writer, but that writer was second, and that was just a backup in case I couldn't sell you, because you didn't have a ton of like ongoing writing credentials. You know, at the time, you had creator on it. For sure.
But I think what happened to me was I was wrapping up Alien. I've been doing Alien for a year, but that was wrapping up, and I was like, I liked writing a book. I liked taking a property and doing something with it, and it was wrapping up. So like when you reached out with Thundercats, it was perfect because I'm like, I can do it again.
What I meant was essentially that like you were not like you had not been writing for 20 years and had like this deep background and this thing of like massive world building with big IP. I hate IP, but you know, it's like a creative property where you could build and expand on something. But honestly, I knew you had been writing, and I had liked that writing, and I spoke to Jeff about it actually. And it's like, you know, I talk to Jeff, and Chris Eliopoulos and Jeff Parker are my two consiglieres whenever I'm like, what do you think of this? But honestly, like it was a lot of it had a lot to do with your art, not the way you draw your physical characters, but your storytelling. There is something about your storytelling that I look out for artists that have interesting shot selection, that are not all talking heads. You know, it's like there's so much in modern comics is like living in the medium, and you don't do that. You know, it's like especially with your stuff with Moon Knight. I don't know how much you were directed, how much you took it upon yourself, but it's like there's cinematography there. There's choices that are strong narrative choices that are being made. And when I was thinking of what I want Thundercats to be, it's like, I want this to be a strong, wide narrative that we are building from the ground up. And slowly you're going to start noticing things that you know about the brand, but also you're going to care about these people. And I thought that like that kind of cinematic sort of take is what I want, is what I would want to see. And I thought you were the kind of person, especially if we could pair the right artist with you, to really see that through. And that's why I love the idea of you working so closely with Drew. Like for people that don't know, it's like you and Drew talk constantly. Like I'm CC'd on a lot of stuff, but Drew tells me that he talks to you a lot, and you.
Yeah, we message here and there. Like, just here and there. Like he's just so nice. Like,
yeah, well, he's great. But he's told me a lot of times, I don't think I break confidence to say that like he has gained a lot of confidence in what you have told him about his art and how to convey certain things, and like you giving notes based on his layouts. And it's like one of the best art classes has got to be doing layouts for author Declan Shalvey, and Declan giving notes on those layouts. Like that's, I mean, like what a great way to know how to, you know, to up your game even more. Drew's an incredible artist, and I think he's only getting better with musicians.
I feel really bad because like I don't know if would like to be. Well, I don't know. I try not to give too many notes or anything because
you don't. No. You don't.
but,
you're not.
But he's so accommodating with all of them. Like it's never. Yeah. Sometimes it's like, hey Drew, I hope you don't mind, but like I was just thinking this, and he'd be like, yeah, sure, and just does it. You know, I think. I don't know if I'd be as good natured about it. I don't know, but I do remember. I remember when we were talking about Thundercats originally, there was no artist attached. Yeah. So I was, I think the first cover I had to turn it around pretty fast. Like it was once we got the property, we had to like move quickly.
The announcement.
So I do think what the advantage for me was that I felt I got to kind of set the visual tone. From the beginning with the first cover and everything. But I remember Drew was the. I remember thinking like, oh, who are we going to find? We should find something like this, X, Y, and Z. And you said your first suggestion was Drew. I was like, oh yeah. There's no I have no impulse to suggest anybody else because I know his work for a long time. He was so good, and I knew, I do think sometimes handing an artist like a big opportunity. I think the same is happening with Rafa on Thundercats Lost. Just like it injects a leveling up, and I think that's definitely happened on both those books.
With the writing as well. With the writing as well, honestly. Like again, you had written dozens and dozens of comics. It's not like you've never written before, but I think you answered the call with something of this size. I think
I replied, "Ho," if you will.
Yeah. It's like you really leveled your game up, and you world built, and we threw a bunch of big ideas at each other, and we're throwing bigger ones at each other, and it's just there's something about letting people know that they have been handpicked. That helps, I think. You talked about giving notes to Drew and saying that you don't give many notes, but you give some notes, some of which are for him to change something, others of which are just to let him know what he did well. I think and you're speaking of, like you asked me earlier, and it was either recorded or not recorded, I don't remember at this point. But did I ever notice anything that that other editors did and did not do, and did that influence me in any way? One thing that I noticed to an extent is that sometimes I would be CC'd on things with other editors, and other editors would not necessarily tell an artist or a writer what they did well. It would just be a list of, here's what you have to change. And I got confused about that because it's like, well, but was there anything good? Did you like anything? And I try to remember, I'm sure I don't do it 100% of the time, but anytime that somebody turns something in for feedback, I try to do my best to be like, even if there's a lot to change, I want to let them know that I have appreciated the work that they've done and this is what they did well. And that's either like, hey, you really captured the tone. This, with a writer, it's like, I really like this part and this part and this part. This part I think could be tweaked a little bit. But, like people like to hear that. People like to know that they're still doing well. They like to know that
more than they like it.
Stamping.
More than they like it, Nate, they desperately crave it. I mean, Jeff was always great when I was working with him on Thunderbolts. That he mentioned something that was good, and like, it nourishes you because when you're drawing something every day and you're on the drawing board every day, weeks in, weeks out, you need something, and I've worked with some people who it'll just be like, good job. And you'll dip your finger in that little container and suck what you can out of it. But just like a genuine, just like the acting on this page is really nice, or that's a lovely drawing of a tree, whatever, like stuff like that. It nourishes you, and I think I don't do it in a fake way. I try to remind myself that's the stuff that like keeps you going on your 12th hour on that page. That somebody noticed that I really put the work in that background, things like that. So I always try and pick something. I've noticed writing a lot more, stuff can just kind of gloss right by. So I kind of understand it more from the other side. You're seeing so much stuff, it's hard to sit down and like really go through stuff and let somebody know they're doing a good job. But, I feel like I have to make sure I'm doing it because you're going to get your best results out of people that way too, And also, it's not fake. It's genuine. It's just, if I sent in something and it was just critiques, then Like you sent me the email this week, or was it last week? The last script I handed in, and you just a general compliment about one thing. It's great. I'm not so needy. You need compliments all the time, but it is nice to know you feel like you're like everyone wants to know they're doing a good job. And
yeah. I mean, and just to let you know that they actually took the time to read it. It's like I'm reading these things, and I'll tell you a thing that I liked. And I get busy, or I get caught up with other things, and I don't necessarily I don't have time to write you 2 paragraphs of like, here's everything that you did really, really well. But like I never lie and tell someone I like it. If I wrote to you that said I liked it, I actually liked it, and it's part of my job to tell you if I didn't. It's like I would not be doing my job if I did not tell you, hey, this isn't really up to snuff. And I'll do that sometimes. I don't love doing that. But if I notice somebody's kind of dogging it as far as art, or like if you're not, if there's backgrounds to be drawn and you're not doing it, or the color's not snuff, or the writing is not quite there, I'll tell you. I think you might have noticed. I don't know if you noticed, but like I think I had I had a heavier hand on helping you with story and dialogue at the beginning of Thundercats, much less so than I do now. That is my tendency, is like putting on a showrunner hat for a moment, just to be sure, like, hey, let's both get on the same page here. Like, I just want to make sure that like this seems a little loose, or this could be adjusted, or maybe we're a little wordy here, or we could add something else here. And like talking about it, and I'm sure it's kind of annoying at first to have to deal with that tonnage of notes. But at the same time, that amount of notes at the beginning, especially, is necessary to dictate how we're going to go moving forward. It's like, here is the agreed upon shape of what we're going to do. And then as we go forward, we both have kind of a shorthand with what we're looking for and what we're doing. And now it's to the point where I give you some notes, but for the most part, you got it. There's really, my job is to not mess it up at some point.
Well, as for your car, or again, I don't know if this is recorded or not, but you had a car metaphor before, but like you're setting up the engine at the beginning, and then, you might need to, tinker here and there, make sure everything's working. And then after that, it's up and running, and it can basically run itself. And to be fair, I mean, I think I do remember notes at the beginning, but I don't remember anything particularly like, galling or stuff like that.
There was a very heavy lettering edit. Like I know. I felt myself like, this is a heavy lettering edit. But again, it wasn't even tough love. It was just like, hey, like,
I was pruning. Like it was.
It was really more about taking out or condensing than rewriting or anything like that. It was just like,
which is fine by me. Like I mean, I like, I don't like things to get overly verbose or too wordy anyway. So I mean, I would expect that with anything starting out, really, and even Terminator 2, like there was a lot of back and forth at the beginning as regarding like what it is or what it isn't, and there were like licensing limitations, and you're like, oh man, this is going to suck here. Actually, no, this is actually probably going to make it more interesting. Like all that stuff is, I mean, that's the fun part of figuring something out and hoping you're getting the right answers out of it, and then you won't know until the book's done.
I think we talked about this at the beginning of Terminator, where you were talking about those limitations. And like, just for me, this is editor brain, writer, like story nerd brain. It's like, when I'm told there's a catch, there's a limitation, there's something you can't do, I get excited. Honestly, I get excited because it's like, oh, so this is the box. Like you can do, but like I can do anything in this box. My only limitations are the box itself. So like, as a fan of like, I love done-in-one comics. I love bottle episodes of television shows.
Yeah.
I love like concise 90-minute movies that tell a beginning, middle, and end. It's like, I love being able to test the limits of a box. It's like...
No, I'm the same. I actively, like when I'm looking through Netflix now, I'm like, is it longer than 90 minutes? And you know what? Not a lot of stuff is. It's really, really hard. When I find a nice, tight 90-minute film, it's like a godsend. It's like, great, I just watch this for an hour and a half and I'll enjoy it and then I'm done. I'm not like signing up for, hours and hours and hours. I wouldn't say I'm excited by limitations. I'm relieved by them. Like, I mean, because for the same reason, like if I know what not to do, that's a start. I already have started by knowing what I can't do. I find restrictions, like that's why creator-owned comics are so hard, because there are no restrictions, so you kind of have to start coming up with them and inflict them on yourself in order to make a start at something. So when you hand me something, you're like, here's something to play with, but you can't press this button. If your first instinct is like, I want to press the button, but then you're like, actually, pressing the button will be fun when you do it the one time, and then it's not interesting anymore. So that's what it's been.
And you say don't press the button, and all I'm thinking of is like, okay, so what are we going to build around the button, and who's going to talk about the button?
Yeah, so you're already coming up with stuff.
I'm already around. And create, like, from a business aside, finances aside, from like a creative kind of thing, I don't necessarily think of creator-owned as better or worse than licensed work, because it's, again, as you said, it's like when you can do anything in the world, that can be as limiting as actual limits. Where it's like,
it can be paralyzing.
It's up to me. So it's like, I'm not given a box. I have to build the box. It's like, well, I don't know how to build a box. I'm used to boxes. It's like, I don't. And so but again, that speaks to curiosity that I really find a lot of joy in. It's like, when you're working on something like Terminator that's got its rules, and then you work on DuckTales that's got its rules, and then I'm on a creator-owned thing and there's no rules. Like, those are totally different things. It's like going to the gym versus going for a run versus going for a bike. It's just all kind of different kind of stuff.
So when you are handed like a license or like whatever you call it, is that what you do first? You're like, say like Thundercats or Powerpuff Girls or whatever it is it the box, or is it, and then the creators, or like do you have like a set approach to like taking on, let's just say, I know a blank, do you have anything here, like Star Trek? If Star Trek was given to you, do you sit down and go, well, what is it going to be? Or do you think who would I like to see write it? Like, do you have a set?
It's never set. It's never the same. It's always different. It's like Sometimes if I'm given a property, I'll instantly think in terms of like, oh, well, that's 4 different books, or I know exactly who I want to write that, or, oh, that reminds me of this, or I have no interest in this whatsoever. What would I have to do to care? It's like, how far would I have to push this away from my perception of what this property is for me to actually give a shit? I've done that a lot. Like that has ended up being some of my favorite things to work on, where it's like, I'm so far removed, or I never read this as a kid, I never cared about this, to like suddenly this has become my favorite thing because I worked and scratched at it until I was finally able to find a kernel of something there. So I really love doing that. Yeah, but it's never the same. I honestly, like, I don't want projects to be the same. That's boring to me. Yeah.
And just like things like, say, name recognition go into like, I mean, it's a cynical question, I guess, but I think it has to be the case where you have something like, say, Silverhawks. Ed Brisson, does he like Silverhawks? Who knows? But he's a really good writer and has worked on X, Y, and Z. Like, does that stuff apply to, like, then rather than say, like, it's hard for new writers starting out, for example. New artists are different. I think you can, like, we hired, Lorenzo was new and Luke was new. Joe was fairly new. So we've hired a good few new artists on Terminator, which I love, because, like you were saying earlier on, giving somebody opportunities is great. But, like, if that's going to happen, you need like a known name. And I had just done, like, how much consideration are those things when you're trying to put a book together? Because they have to be like.
It matters. It matters differently for each project. It's like, for Thundercats in particular, you need a name. It's like, this is a big deal. We're going for a big recognition, and you are that name by and large, right? It's like you are mainly known as an artist, or you were mainly known as an artist, and now I think it's become more balanced. But like the fact that you're doing a cover, the fact that you're there as the writer, as the face of the book, that really matters. When you're working on a different project, like Kelly Thompson, I got to write the first 3 issues of Powerpuff. Kelly Thompson is one of the most popular modern writers and one of the best comic writers for my money right now. But she didn't, I wasn't necessarily looking for the biggest name possible. I just knew that she was a massive fan. So the reason that she wrote 3 issues is just because it's like, yeah, I just love Powerpuff Girls, and then the person that came after
that's
her,
mutually beneficial. That's mutually beneficial. She loves that, so she'll enjoy it. She's a no-name, so that'll help the book.
Same thing happened with Ed for Silverhawks. I already knew that he was a massive Silverhawks fan, so it was like I wanted someone that I knew was a really good writer, and I'd worked with him before on a creator-owned thing. And it's like, and I knew that he was available, and so it's like, yes, that just ends up working. So I mean, it's really dependent on the project. A lot of times you're working on a project where name recognition of the creative team is, it always helps, if you can get a big name. I tend to not think in terms of who's the biggest name I could get when it comes to the interior creative team. And in terms of like when you're working on monthly comics, a large concern has to do with cover artists. That's a hard thing to think about sometimes because you want it to be the best creative thing that it can possibly be. But at the same time, there is the practicality of knowing that certain cover artists sell certain numbers per month. That's just a fact. And so it's like you want to give people a try, you want to give people a leg up on covers, but you've got to balance that with like knowing like, okay, well, we want to hit a certain number. In order to hit a certain number, we've got to bring on a certain number of covers and a certain level of cover artist to be able to sell enough units for the health of the book. So it's like,
and also you as a packager, these are your, in other companies, the company will be doing all the covers or whatever. But as a packager, you're involved in all this too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I pick the cover artists with Dynamite. It's a lot of communication with, to make sure that like the, popular cover artists are on there. But yeah, I'm reaching out to the cover artist to make sure that they can do it. And it's, I would love to be in a world where I can just do like, it would be lovely to live in a world where the interior artist is also the cover artist and there's just one cover per issue. But that's not going to sell. That's not going to sell the amount that doing 5 covers with a few different variants will sell. It's like,
so is it tough to kind of
dictates that? Yeah,
to walk that edge, because like I know, say you have like David Nakayama is doing the covers, hugely popular cover artist. So that Thundercats, for example, but I also know, say on Terminator, David Cousins, who is would be a newer artist doing variants. Like you're not just going for the big names every time. I do see you kind of trying to try new people out, because also you try people out and then you never know, in 5-6 years they could be the biggest thing in the world and they'll always remember that you gave them a shot. I think it's not to sound
David Nakayama. Like David Nakayama. Oh, yeah. I hired him to work on Marvel Adventures Spider-Man back in the day, and we have kept that relationship going all these years, which is why he did Gargoyles, 12 Gargoyles covers, which is why he did all of the Thundercats covers, and why he's doing a few more for me right now. It's like, yeah, those kinds of relationships matter. And you're right. It's like, there's also and now
if you bank on the known every time, I think the returns can diminish. You seem to be conscious enough that of course go for the known stuff, but also build on the back end, and ideally then this stuff just comes around in a positive way after a few years.
Well, let's look at, and not to get too specific with the numbers, but also very nerdy about the process. It's like if you've got something where you're working on a book that's got 3 covers per month, or as many as 6 covers per month, it's like you've got to be practical and understand, okay, obviously the A cover is going to sell the most by far. Your B cover can be buttressed by a big name, you, for instance. Sometimes it is beneficial to have a big name as the second cover rather than the first cover, because your first cover is probably going to sell better no matter what. You want a big name, but you don't have to necessarily have the biggest name. So then you put your second, you put somebody equally bankable at B. Now C, maybe you have a name that has a built-in audience, and there you go. Now D and E, now you're starting to get into the weeds a little bit as far as okay, well, these are not going to sell I don't know, a tenth, an eighth of what your A and B are going to sell. But at the same time, if you can find a hook, and that's where things like, like an 8-bit variant, an homage variant, a battle damage variant, like David Cousins is actually doing battle damage variants for Silverhawks that have done really well. And then you got action figure variants like Drew Moss. Drew does his own variant each month, and he also does an action figure variant. And I wouldn't commission those if they weren't adding to the bottom line. So like there's a fun creative reason for that, but then they're also like, it helps the health of the book. It lets the book keep going. You know, do
you like that? I mean, sorry, not like, but like, are you interested in that side of things? Like, as you told me some of this stuff before, and I didn't realize that, and because I do my own comics too, and it's interesting to know the mechanics of this stuff, and I'm all about like artistic purity and trying to make the most like creatively rewarding experience, but also you want the book to survive. Those can be conflicting decisions sometimes. Like, and like I don't know, like, do you like that part of the process?
I respect that part of the process. I used to be stubborn about it. I used to be annoyed about the idea until it suddenly clicked. I'm a very stubborn person, but it suddenly clicked to me. It's like, there's no benefit to me trying to fight this process. It's like this, I should try to make this as creative and interesting as I possibly can. And I should try to find the biggest names for the health of the book, and also find people that either I'm just a fan of, or I want to help give a leg up, that I see something in what they're doing that it's like, I think they would do an interesting variant. And then, like helping to break somebody in is one of my favorite things to do. And variant covers and like short stories and one shots or fill-ins, as far as an artist goes, like those are the ways that you help somebody break in, help to build their confidence, and then to see if they can, play the guitar. And if they can in that circumstance, then you give them more stuff. But look, covers are artistic and they are interesting, and especially like the way that people like you do them, where like genuinely like you do something that is not just iconography, or it's not just like icon hero shots. It's like it's something interesting. Like your Thundercats Lost covers in particular, I love them. They're great because you're trying to come up with something interesting. Yeah,
but I realize they're kind of, aside of the first one, they're kind of become like character pieces, which I like. It's not like I like doing that. It's a mix of a hero shot, but also a personality thing.
But like I gave you a prompt for, I think it was Lost number 3, where it's like, this guy's like, do your Daredevil for this, and you did, and it was like, that's
very much did.
Fantastic. But like it's there's the artistic side of it, and you need to care about that. But then there's also just the idea that like sometimes your best marketing tool, especially to retailers, is your cover. Or your array of covers, your selection of covers. Like you are taking your wares to market to be like, hey, here's what I've got. I can't show you all 22 interior pages. Like, hey, do you want to buy page 4? It's like, no, here, do you want to, like, here's my 5 covers by people that you recognize or a really cool new artist. Would you be interested in any of these? That's a big, important part of this. I'm not making creativity in a vacuum.
Sure. I mean, if you can't answer this, I don't want to. I totally get it. But I was told recently, somebody on the internet told me that the Thundercats Lost covers I'm doing aren't B covers anymore; they're A covers. If that's true, is that the case where like the A cover art is still unavailable, and now you've got to kind of like figure out a way to keep one cover selling the way it was? Like, would it, is moving one artist to a different cover more risky than a different artist, and keeping one artist on the same one?
Well, I would say in that circumstance, it behooves, because you are so now associated with a very successful Thundercats book, that it behooves anything else Thundercats to be associated with you. So
having
a cover for another Thundercats book, the same way you did with the Apex one shot. You were the main. For that one. I mean, it's you. but again, you are I mean, thank you for having me on your podcast, Declan, for me to kiss your ass. You are a particular creative force where like your name and your talent matter in different pieces. Like people know of you, and you produce pieces that people like, whoa. And even if they didn't know it was you, they'd stop and like, oh, I like.
But even let's just assume I'm terrible and the work is awful. Just from a good.
Yeah.
But yeah, as the editor / packager on this, like you have to think of like what is new Thundercats book. Either Drew or Deck, who are associated with the main book, use them somehow to like on this. It just makes sense. Like it's trying to cross over a readership as much as possible onto a new thing.
Sure.
It just makes logistical, financial sense.
Just a soft connectivity. If you like this, you'll love this. It's it's very like, I mean, it is promotion, but at the same time, it's creative, and it's like there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with associating Thundercats Lost with Thundercats. I don't think.
Sure. Hey, look, it's more work for me, so I'm not complaining. So how do you find new talent? Like I know, like, you would go on Twitter and ask for people. And I do know a lot of people really hate that you do that you like go online trying to find new people. I've seen a lot of people complain about it. But I would say, like, I don't know anybody else who does that. Like, I don't know any editor who will actually go like, hey, I'm looking at stuff, send it my way. Like that must have you. I think that's how. I think it's how you found Justin Mason, who I ended up working with, or we were working together on a Dynamite thing, but then ended up doing an image book together, and like he's killing it right now. Like there's very rare opportunities where people can just go like online and just send stuff in, and I don't know has the success rate been pretty good with that, or is that I assume that's a strategy that's worked out really well for you.
I've literally brought on hundreds of creators at this stage doing that. It's like I use Daniel Kibblesmith as the first example. Like the fact that I tweeted out at some point that I was working on the Duck books, or he just knew I was working on the Duck books, and he DMs me about Darkwing. It's like that's a social media connection. Like Doc Shaner and I met online because one time I was like, I just tweeted out I think I was an editor at Marvel at the time, or maybe I just left, of like, I want to see Ben Grimm eating a snow cone. And he drew a picture of that online. And then I DM'd him, and then we started working together. Mark Laming, one of my good friends and collaborators, it's like, there have been so many people that I have met online because I've let people know I'm looking to bring on collaborators. People are welcome to not like that, I guess. I don't love olives. So, people can not like whatever they like. Like whenever I need a cover artist, I could go to the people that I know. I could go to the stable or I could be like, hey, I wonder if anybody new is putting their stuff out there online. I tend to think of it very similarly to being at a comic convention and looking at somebody's portfolio. I am somebody that is actively looking to hire people and give them, I'm not generally looking for one cover. Usually if I'm looking for a cover artist, it's a minimum 4 to 5 covers, if not more, if you can handle that. Interiors, I'm not asking you to do one issue. I'm looking for somebody that can handle an art most of the time. A colorist, I'm looking to bring you on, and back in the day, maybe I would get like 20, 30 responses. Now, anytime I do it, I get thousands of responses, and I'm not able to answer every single one of them. I'm not able to reach out to every single person and say, thank you for that. I appreciate that. Maybe I should take the time to do that. And that's worth thinking about, because I don't want people to think that they're just sending it into the void. But at the same time, I can't hire everybody. And for me, it's like I'm looking at your stuff, and if I see something, if I get a twinkle or a sparkle, it's like, yes. And then I reach out to you, and I've done it recently. I'll continue to do it. I think it's a great way to meet new people.
I think the thing that would stop me from doing that is that you're going to get a lot of terrible stuff sent to you, and then I'd feel really bad about how I'm going to go, well, not today, sorry. Because I do creator and stuff, so I'd be looking for people.
Well, wait. So what you're saying is you would get a lot of things, and then you would need to look, and then you need to whittle that down and shape it into something. Like
I think it would become something way.
The answers, yeah.
Don't like editing. No,
that's part of editing. I see it as part of editing. It's like, okay, I am now looking at, it's like, because I'm my own I'm a packager. That means I am my own talent manager. So I don't have somebody bringing me like, hey, here's these 5 things. I have associations with certain studios, and they represent, or certain like representatives of artists and things like that. But they're bringing me people that they've already packaged, and they think, oh, this person would be good. And I'll look at that, and I'm interested in working with them. But at the same time, there's somebody out there. There's lots of people out there that are either ready to go or not quite ready to go, and maybe my prompting would help them to get ready to go. It's like, I think I met Drew on Twitter. So I'd have to check with him again to see. But it's like, I'm not just.
You've been working with him for how many years now?
I've been working with him for probably close to 10 years now. Yeah. I mean, I've been working, I work with people that I love to work with, and I found a lot of them online, just on my own. Just like, I'm looking for an artist. Sometimes I'm looking for a particular writer, or if I'm looking for a writer, I have no way to find them except online. So I reach out to them that way. So it's like, to me, it's an incredibly valuable tool. It's a public tool, but it's a tool to be able to find new people, to help people break in, which is
I think it's a great way to just like open. Like the downside is you're opening floodgates that are very hard to close, but the other side is there's no other opportunity for you to just be anywhere and try show stuff and maybe get a job out of it.
But I also think it's not.
There's no dynamite submission page as far as I know.
No.
Well, there might be, but I mean,
I don't know.
Maybe I'm not sure myself. I should probably look. But I think it's just one of those rare opportunities where you can literally just show an edit or something if you just catch them.
I look at every single reply. That's the thing. It's like, I'm not just like I don't know the value. I have no idea what the value would be of doing that and then not looking at them. Like, because I'm looking. I'm looking for them.
What would you say is maybe the worst and best type of response you get? As in, somebody might just show you a page that's just no storytelling pages. Obviously, that's bad.
Well,
but
if
somebody sent you like a blog post with like a series of sequential pages where you can actually look through and go, oh wow, this guy can tell a story. Like, have you had those examples?
The absolute best thing you can do is to reply with 2 to 4 pages of whatever you've got, and whether that's like one cover and then 3 sequentials, because I want to see your range. I want to see what you can do. So you send me that, and then you send me a link to your online portfolio. Like, that is what I am looking for. That is what I would like. I don't always get that. Not everybody knows that.
What percentage of responses would be that?
Oh, I have no idea. I couldn't even begin to guess. I mean,
I imagine low. I think people just kind of throw stuff online.
It's pretty low. In the past, I've tried to say like, hey, here's what would be ideal. Like this, I've tweeted out a few times is like what it would be ideal for me. And then, but for any editor or creator looking for a collaborator, it's like, this is what you want your thing to look like. It's like, I click on a lot of links, and it's their website, and they've got
even dark page
and fading out. And then here's the link to this and link to that. It's like, I'm trying to look at your art. It's like whenever you throw, I've got 1,400 of these to get through. Whatever, like if you throw up any roadblocks to me looking at your art, I'm gonna abandon it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So
I asked the question I asked the question to get that actual like advice, because I think sometimes because you can just put up a page, but like if I click through and I'm looking for sequential pages and it's 20 images of like some anime guy with a sword, I'm like, this is very nice, but this isn't what I'm looking for, and you've just given me 3 reasons to just close the window, rather than maybe there's amazing pages down there, but you're not, you have to make it as easy as possible. The less hurdles for me to jump, the better. A link where I can just see it, right?
Yeah. I also often get responses of like, hey, can you follow me so I can DM you some stuff on a project that I can't show online yet? And that doesn't get a response from me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. The only thing that you've ever drawn is for something that you can't show me. like or that you can't put online. You never did a pinup. You never did a tryout page. You never did something just for your own blog for fun on a Tumblr. Like just anything. Just show me what you can do. And that just speaks to like this is not, like you need to have a portfolio. It's like it's not a very minimum trying to break in. I need to see 5 to 10 pages of sequentials, or like a big variety of different kind of covers that you're doing, because it's like I need a body of work. I need to know that you're hungry, that you're available, and that you can actually do this. I have in the past, I've given people shots that have really shown up, that have really done the work. And then I've given people shots that said like, oh yeah, I can do 22 pages in 3 weeks, and 7 weeks in, I don't have 5 pages. It's like, it's that thing of like, you have forever to put your portfolio together, but then when you get a for hire job that's on the clock, either you just can't keep up. Some people just can't keep up with that. And so that's why
that's
I'm
got
not
to be
randomly asking for a big body of work.
That's got to be a tough thing when you're trying somebody new, is like, it really is a stab in the dark. Like say, Justin Mason has completely proven himself by doing amazing work over the years, but you don't know that to start. You've nothing to go on other than like, are they getting pages in? So like I think that's one thing you don't realize when you're starting out, is anybody hiring you is taking a huge chance, and that the potential for everything to fall apart is 70%. You're kind of working within thin margins every time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, if I reach out to you and I want to work with you, like that, I don't think like this all the time, but in a way it's like, you're representing, my name is in this book. It's like, I'm taking a chance on you. I have confidence in you. I want to work with you. I want this to be good. So like that, that's part of it. I want to instill people with the confidence that it's like, hey, you are good. I think you are good, or I think you're on the road to being good, and I'd like to help you. I'd like to help you there. I really like helping people to get to be able to work consistently for a long time. I like Jacob Edgar, I just realized, was somebody else that I met online. I've worked with him now on a lot of things. He worked with me on our creator on Kickstarter, the Daring Double Life of Ace Adams. I've also worked with him on like a James Bond one shot that he drew. I've given him a lot of covers and things like that. And that's another example of like, he was really young. And I looked at his stuff because he replied online, and he said that he was a SCAD alum. I think he was like a super fresh SCAD alum coming out when we first met each other. But because of the SCAD connection, he's like, yeah, I'll take a look. And it's like, his stuff kind of reminds me of Darwin Cook. And now it really reminds me of Darwin Cook because he's gotten a lot better. And those are just the kinds of connections that you will have if you are curious, and if you put yourself out there. Like to me, it is a very, I don't know, I guess kind of revealing or very vulnerable kind of thing for me to be like, I'm looking for people. If you'd like to show me your stuff. So it's vulnerable to them, but it's also vulnerable to me of like, I'm looking for it, and maybe I'll get criticism sometimes, but that's okay because I get to work with some fun people.
Well, I also think it's a good thing, because I think it's harder for people to break in right now, because there's just so much stuff, and people will kind of like we're saying before, you for commercial reasons you'll go for known names, which is great, but it also means that like less people take chances on totally new names, and that's just that's a creative dead end if you're not like giving people those kind of opportunities.
Yeah, I don't know if it's harder. I can't speak to that. I mean, like, because social media kind of going into the toilet is not great, but at the same time, there is still that connection. You've got enough social sites where you can put stuff out online, and if you're not quote unquote broken in yet, you can build your own audience in a way. George Combadeas is an example of somebody that I saw on Instagram who was doing just like, he's just a big Spider-Man fan. And I was just like constantly seeing his Spider-Man stuff. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Maybe I'll look at his book. And then I looked him up, and it's like, oh, you're you're not on Spider-Man. You're just drawing Spider-Man. And then it's like, well, could you draw other stuff? And you're like, yeah, sure.
And so was no.
And so I hired it, and like he was just doing it for fun. And it was just like, okay, well, so like, do you want to like do John Carter of Mars? And he said yes. And then I found out that he could draw in color stuff himself in like 3 weeks. And it's like, oh my God. And so then I was like, cut to, he's doing 12 issues of Gargoyles on like one of the top selling books that I've ever worked on. And then he parlays that over to Hercules, and then he parlays that over to other things. It's like, you know, like it really pays to be, it really pays for me to be out there looking, and it really pays for, if you're trying to break in, to get online and show your stuff around. You know, it's like, make as much as you possibly can on your own, have a body of work, have it deep as possible, and put it online. People are looking. I can't be the only one. You know,
I think you're the only one that puts out calls. I'm sure other editors are online looking at stuff, but not like.
No, they should. Other people should do it. Oh, I was also going to say, like, that, you know, one of the very positive benefits that I've heard about is that when I put that online, I will, after a day or so, I'll also get responses from other creators, writers working on their own creator-owned or other companies saying like, oh, I was actually like, I was checking your replies and I found an artist that, you know, or artists, plural, that I then reached out to work with and got them. So thank you for doing that. That's happened like 5 or 6 times in the past few years of like, it becomes, and I think I've tweeted that as well, of like, as a separate message of like, hey, any creators looking, like, check out my replies here. There's thousands here. Like, please, I can't hire. I edit a lot, but I can't edit that many books, you know? So I see it as a benefit.
And would you say, like, when you do get, you know, your team together and whatnot, like, is there something? How about this? How do you know when it's going well or when it's not going well? Do you see like cracks starting? Not every project. I'm not, you know, asking specifics, but I'm sure there's some projects that, like, you know, it's gone this way. You're like, oh crap, but others have gone, you know, brilliantly. That you might, like, for example, Thundercats. I was happy with what we were doing, but I had no idea it was going to kick off the way it did. And if there was somebody less reliable than Drew, that book could have gone off the tracks easily. Yeah, because all of a sudden there was all this attention. Then you know, you're trying to get the book made.
For sure. You know, it depends on is it doing financially well? Is it doing creatively well? Is it doing well enough to make it to the trade where it will ultimately do well? There's a lot of different metrics for that. I do my best to not look too much at the sales. I want the sales to be good, but I try to not make decisions solely for like, how do we juice these numbers? How do we get it to be as big as humanly possible? Story is first. Creativity is first for me. You're dealing with people. So not every person is going to get along with every person or whatever circumstances in their lives, they got to step back. And so it's really sad when you put a team together and it's going really well and somebody has to step off or somebody can't keep up the schedule or I mess up and I forget to message somebody in a time frame and then they go and look for other work. You know, sometimes it's my fault. But you just, you know, I like to think that I've put together an environment where people want to work, where people are like enthusiastic or feeling creative and so, you know, by and large, most of the time, creatively, I think it goes really well. So it doesn't always click. You know, you're not making donuts. You're making a story. So not every story part fits together. It's not always you're not always batting 1,000. But no, I see anytime that, you know, if an artist has to step off or a writer wants to end at a certain arc or something like that, there'll be a second like, oh God, it's, you know, it's going to crumble, it's going to break. But then, you know, again,
we worked together on something that kind of blew up, you know, like sure.
Didn't work
out, you know, but I mean, I just remember, you know, you were cool about it. You know, you didn't like, you know, I think a lot of times freelancers are worried that editors are going to scold them, but like it wasn't ideal and, you know, it wasn't the way you wanted to work out. But I just remember you were really cool about it. So, you know, that you're more likely to want to work with somebody again, somebody who sees your point and can hear you out rather than just give you crap, because then you'll probably never work with that person again. Just from a purely emotional argument, I guess. But yeah, I just know that like all this stuff doesn't work out all the time, and like you've got to take, especially the person who like made the choices. It's going to blow up in your face sometimes, but in other times it's going to work great, and like you just kind of take it on the chin when it doesn't work out.
Yeah, sometimes it just doesn't work. But then if it's the rough and nice thing about it is the book's still got to come out. It's like if I have solicited or committed to doing whatever 10, 15, 20 issues, 5 issues of something, and somebody drops out, well, I don't just get to say like, okay, well, let's start over, or let's take 3 months to figure it out. It's like to make a reference to one of our favorite movies, Master and Commander: Far Side of the World. We will refit it. We will refit at sea. It's like I don't give a shit if the mast is down. We're sailing. Like we're going after the French ship. So it's like you gotta make the best of it, and that's where stuff like
I will say something I meant to say too is the Terminator has been a book that like. Kind of didn't go according to plan for some reasons, and then I found it a difficult job because there's a lot of kind of like cobbling stuff together and moving with situations. Through no fault anyway, but so it's been a tough job in that regard. But I also realize it's been the one job I've done where I've had to like write by the seat of my pants, which has actually been really interesting. Like it's great to be able to plan things, and like say excuse me, Thundercats, we'd have arcs planned out, and that's kind of more thought out, and Terminator was like kind of more idea based, so a lot of that has been kind of like I have an idea and then it'll change as I'm writing it, or it'll tweak, and it's been a very tough job because it's like new idea every month, heavy research, stuff like that, so like but it has also meant that I've kind of had to just like write out of boxes or find creative solutions to problems. And as a result, it's actually probably been one of the more creatively interesting jobs. So again, it's not didn't go the way planned, but I think it's it's more of an interesting book because of that, which is a weird thing to say.
Yeah, no, what I'll say about Terminator is the interesting thing is that like I thought of you for that obviously because of your time, but time after time. Sorry,
time before time.
Time before time. I knew it was before or after. Time during time. Yes, I because of that. Yes, because of that I really liked that book, and I thought like Terminator, yes, and then I told you, but no time travel. so like because I liked it because of your time travel book, but no time travel, and so and like I really like the idea of change, but like no time traveling, but we set it in a different time each issue or each mini arc, and then very early on we realized that it should be or it was gonna be a different artist for each story. And so that adds an extra layer. And then like we kind of, as you said, flying by the seat of your pants, kind of have to like tweak the stories, adjust the stories as needed. And that just adds all of these different things. And it is not easy all of the time. But again, that becomes one of those boxes that I was talking about where it's like, oh, I really like doing this. I wouldn't want to do this for every book. It's definitely not how, like our working relationship is different for Terminator than it is with Thundercats.
Yeah, true.
I think, it's like we do it a lot differently. You're able to, you've got to speed up and slow down a lot of times with Terminator, whereas you get to like work ahead sometimes for the fill-in artists on Thundercats and keep Drew fed and that kind of thing. And so it's just it's a creative challenge, and it's not always comfortable, but I think it adds experience, it adds wrinkles in your brain because you're using a different part that you wouldn't usually use on something. And quite frankly, again, thank you for having me on your podcast. I think it is one of your best writing gigs because I think you are forced to be kind of down and dirty with it. It's like you really it's a dirty book. And it's pretty like, it's a mean book. It's an angry book. The main character is somebody that doesn't have a point of view. It's like, and yet ironically, we're seeing from his point of view, like he's a Terminator. He terminates, that's what he does. And so finding the story around the Terminator every single time is just a really interesting challenge. That I think
it has been a challenge and frustrating, for those reasons. But I do actually think it's probably, it's made me a better writer for sure, and I would say I'm more proud. That's what I'm more proud. Thundercats is different because it's a very different challenge. I'm basically trying to write.
You're building,
an X-Men all ages type book, to some degree. I should say, I gave a copy of the new book to my cousin's son, and they sent me a photo of him asleep in bed with his hand in the book because he's been clearly reading before bed. And I don't have any other books that I can do that with. I'm certainly not giving him. I'm not giving a 10-year-old Terminator. So they scratch two different itches, but. It is interesting, working with you on two different books, two very different experiences. But I do want to, talk at Thundercats a little bit for a finish. Did you have any idea it was going to blow up like that?
I knew it was going to do well. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I thought it would do well, but not like whatever it was, 180,000 or whatever. Who's counting? I mean, But I thought it would do. I thought it would be a successful licensed book. Set a set amount, and then by the time we get to, I think we were talking 10 issues originally, that it would wrap up.
It had just been so long since there'd been an ongoing Thundercats book. Like that was just it to me. It's like so many people know about this, and they've not been fed in so long. Like that, it was as simple as that to me. And it was like, as long as we can make this good, and as long as we don't start with a just cavalcade of continuity, we can make this work, make this open and inviting, and show people why these people are so friggin' cool, and let's go. Like that's, the audience was there. I just knew that audience was there. So I didn't know that number. I could never have guessed that number, but like I knew that was going to do well.
Well, I think for me, I feel like there's a mix of, because I've gone to conventions and stuff and talked to people, and some people are like, they had no idea, they'd heard of Thundercats, but they'd never seen the cartoon, so they're like, I'll give this a go. Or there was the old school fans. Also, I think there's people who like are more traditional comic book readers, but had kind of like stopped reading Marvel and DC. They'd kind of fallen off, but like this was a thing they remembered, that they used an excuse to kind of read some comics again. So I think there was like,
and the action figures, like the action figures were in the ether, and it comes from a time when so many of the cartoons were like basically produced in order to make figures. It's like you got your Transformers, your G.I. Joes, your Thundercats, those He-Man, Masters of the Universe. Like you've got those things around that time where you don't know the exact chronology, but it's like the action figures and the series kind of came out around the same time, and one benefited the other and vice versa. So yeah,
plus there hadn't been any material in 10 years, whatever it was.
Yeah, that's the thing. And you had evidence around that time that things from that era were coming out, and there was an audience. Were
you conscious of that at the time? Because I hadn't considered it at all.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I have to look at every solicit for every publisher every month. It's like whether I read something or not, I'm just like, I'm aware, like, oh, they're bringing that back. Okay, sure.
And so when did you realize, so when, was it like when the sales came in, you're like, oh, maybe we could build this out more? Since like in the time since.
Well, I got excited because we'd already talked about some ideas of like where to go, what to build. And we knew Silverhawks was I knew at least that Silverhawks was. Well, it was
Chitara first. I think Chitara, you were pretty like, that was your first, like, let's try this.
Yeah. Well, I knew that I wanted Sue Lee to write a Chitara thing because she'd been working on Maleficent, and I really love her voice and thought that that would be good for her. But I also knew that Silverhawks was a possibility. It was not nearly on the level of being a known quantity as Thundercats, but I thought that if this does well, then there is the potential. In a lot of ways, I thought of it as similar to Gargoyles. Gargoyles had come out about a year before that. I edit Gargoyles, written by Greg Wiseman, who created Gargoyles. And that was another example of like there had not been a comic or a TV show for Gargoyles for a long time, but there was obviously a fervent, fevered fan base that was just like, we really want this. And it popped, did really well. And then we were able to build some stuff that Greg had been thinking about for 15, 20 years of stories he would want to tell 1,000 years ago and stuff and side stories. Thundercats. So when I started working on Thundercats, I brought some of those ideas over to that of like, if this first one pops, you get to tell a different story from a different perspective. And then you can connect it all through a Thunderverse of sorts, like using that umbrella to like have Silverhawks do better than it would have done if you hadn't had Thundercats to begin. So it became a much easier proposition. And then Thundercats Lost, that came from an idea that you and I talked about of like, what if there was a second team? And then Ed came on very early, very, very soon after to like help build that out. Along with Apex, that kind of came around that time as well. And so it just became a very organic thing. It was never like, okay, first we do this, and then we have our spinoff and the spinoff of the spinoff and the spinoff of the spinoff. I don't love doing spinoffs just for the sake of spinoffs. I would like them to be something creatively interesting. I'd like there to be a perspective and a reason to do them.
What's the balance, do you think? Like, because, there's been a miniseries, a one-shot, I guess 2 ongoings now with Thundercats Lost and Silverhawks in the space of a year. Now, to me, I feel that feels quite natural, and it's not, it's not too much. I got a comment on Instagram when I posted the first cover to Thundercats Lost, and it was like something along the lines of, "Oh God, just milking the fan base," and I'm like, it's one book. It's another book, and you don't have to read it. But also, from purely, I guess, cynical point of view, like all stories are milking an audience. It's like, it's to the degree of like, are you milking them too much? Should there be 13 Thundercats books? No, but like, if there's a readership for
I'd
3,
be so bored.
That's great.
No, no, there shouldn't be 13 Thundercats books, but there should be the amount of books that like for my personal like just perspective of like all the books that have either come out or that we're working on to come out have come out of story, have come out of creative conversations of like
Chitara, for example, like there's definitely stuff I could have done in the main book that was set beforehand.
Yeah.
But I also just didn't think that was the place for the main book, whereas Chitara was able to basically do additive backstory without it kind of like getting in the way of what we were doing on that main book. And that's great. You didn't have to read Chitara, but if you did, it kind of builds up what's happening in the main book, and same with the rest. I guess maybe with Apex you'd want to read that one shot, but again, if you haven't, then he's just a kind of a mysterious character, and if you want to know more, you can go. Like, I think that's the best way to build this stuff. But I was curious. I mean, I kind of knew what you were thinking because we had talked about it a bit, but still, I thought it's interesting to know like what's the best way to kind of build this stuff out. Because when the license was taken, I doubt that was the plan.
I mean, the plan was to do well, to try to do well, for sure. But it's like you never know. You don't want to put too many resources and build up too much, and then have a thing come out and then like, oh, okay, never mind. You want to sort of build as organically as you possibly can, and then make sure that there's a basis of sales. Like I don't just like rubber stamp and just tell the publisher like, hey, we're going to do this. It's like, you got to sell everybody on it. You got to make sure marketing, you got to make sure retailers are excited about it and that kind of thing. So it's like, I mean, I honestly don't really think of it as milking stuff. I think of some of my favorite stories were just like spinoffs of spinoffs of spinoffs. It's like one of my favorite, I grew up a DC guy, but one of my favorite books is Untold Tales of Spider-Man by Kurt Busiek. Like that book is a spinoff of a spinoff of a prequel of a spinoff to continuity that I never followed as a kid. But I love that book. It's like I love it. I love it more than anything. There's so many like Robin and Nightwing one shots by Chuck Dixon that I grew up loving and things like that were part of like, I don't know, like Contagion or Panic in the Sky or whatever, whatever big event that I was never actually reading, but like seeing the effects of something that was happening in continuity, using that as an excuse to tell your own little side story, to build something. It's like, those are the interesting things to me. That's what Thundercats Lost is. That's what the Chitara thing is. That's what some of the things we're building is.
Well, that's some of the one shots as well. The one is that'll be out next week. Lionel faring on his own. Like that's just that's a cool, fun story that couldn't exist in a 5-issue Thundercats miniseries.
Yeah.
Creatively, it's one of the most fun things to do about Thundercats is because most books you do now, they're 5 or 10 issues, and you can't take these kind of weird, one done in one kind of stories that are just off the beaten path and then come back. Like there's not a lot of opportunity to do those type of things.
Yeah, I remember as we were going along the first few months the book was coming out, I remember telling you a few times like, hey, like get comfortable with the fact that we're doing a lot of these. Like you don't have to let's do some good moments and things like but don't pack it all in up here. Like let's move this over here and let's spend some time with these people. I relish long form storytelling as well. Like not everything deserves 25, 30, 50 issues, 100 issues, things like that. But sometimes it's great to do that. And in those circumstances, some of the best things to do are character choices, to spend time with the characters, to learn why you want to follow their journey. You want to see them do well, not do well, as opposed to just letting plot just grind the gears month to month. It's, I find that interesting.
Same. Okay, well, this is including the time where I wasn't recording.
Have we been recording, by the way?
Oh, no, we haven't. Let's start again.
Oh, okay, let's start.
No, we're recording. The thing is saying recording, so we're fine. Just quickly, you're doing so many books. Have you hit a maximum amount of what you're able to do? I mean, like I said, some are one-shots, some are minis, some are ongoings. Do you just kind of have to figure it out as you're doing, like what you're managing, what you're not managing?
I mean, I feel like I don't do more than I can do. Sometimes I feel overwhelmed, but like I have the motor for it. I love doing it. I have determination and energy and curiosity, and I find this stuff fun, so I make the time. Sometimes it means I need a little extra coffee, and maybe I don't get to go to a movie or hang out with friends one extra night because I got to do a thing. But it's like it's worth it. I love doing it. So yeah.
And I don't know. I was going to say, what's your favorite book you're doing right now? Is there
not Thundercats?
Not Thundercats. It's not Terminator either. You how do I say this? You've stuff coming up. I know you can't talk about it, but like, there's pretty big stuff coming up. Like, are you? Okay, here's a question. Here's probably a better question. Do you fall in love with the making of the project? Like, is that your favorite bit? Like, do you find?
I mean, it's
if you're working on 20 books and there's one that like it's a new thing, do you find yourself more distracted by the new thing? Ideally, you can because everything else is moving along. But like, I get the sense you're in love with the initial making, and you get to do it all the time.
I love it. But I don't love that more than the other books. It's not about that. As you said, it's like when a book is up and running, I have to be I want to be directly involved. And if there's a problem, like it's not like I don't do anything after the 4th issue. Like sometimes you've got to, like you and I very recently had to completely adjust something that was very deep into its run that we won't talk about. But like, but creating something, even something based on established material, takes a lot of time and thought and creativity and energy. You just got to be able to put your whole back into it sometimes. So when you're building something, especially something that's going to last for years, you've really got to focus down on it. So that is the thing where I start to, when I try to start too many things at the same time, that is when I start to get a little overwhelmed of like, I can't launch 5 new ongoings at the exact same time. So I got to tier this out somehow. But I do love it. Like it's where anything is possible, but also you're trying to work your way around the limitations, and you're trying to work the problem. You're just trying to like figure out like, how do we make this work? How do we build this to last? I'm still working to put the creative team around me. I'm trying to give them confidence. I'm trying to make sure they know that they're on the right path, and I got their back no matter what. So, and we're all trying to just figure out the best ideas. So I love that stuff. It's not my, it doesn't make every new shiny toy my favorite, but it just becomes a different thing. And like I said earlier, like with Gargoyles and Thundercats, learning every new project gives me a new tool to put in my box. Like I get a new hammer, a new screwdriver, a new saw each time I work on a new project, and I can bring that knowledge to a new project while also being curious about seeing something I'd never seen before, something I'd never done before. Is that like that new project that you're talking about is something that I've never done before? And so it's taking a lot of time to work on it, but I think it's worth it. So, yeah.
And do you feel things have built that way? Like it's like, Thundercats, I don't think you've ever done anything like that has built up as much as it has. Maybe Gargoyles was like your first book that kind of built out of success. And now Thundercats is, is that really rewarding to have things kind of blossom out that way?
It's nice. I mean, it's not why it's not the thing that gets me up in the morning. But any time that you work really hard on something and you champion something and you put the team together and you communicate with all the important people, the head of the company and the marketing and making sure that the covers are all going to the right places and your social media is right and all that kind of stuff. It's like taking all the time and also like building it, like thinking of it 10 months out, 20 months out and all that kind of stuff. And then to look up and see that like, oh my God, people are actually buying this. It's like, it's very rewarding. It's very inspiring, and it helps you do more. It really greases the wheels to be able to do other stuff, either in that continuity or taking like the lessons learned from that process of like, why did this work other than just A, B, and C? What are D and E and F? And would D, E, and F apply to this new thing that we're doing? So it's great. It's nice to do well, but but very shortly it's on to the next thing. Yeah.
Yeah. What I quite like about Thundercats is like, what it's done is that it has opened the door to like, Rafa is a great artist who I've known for years. And like, it's great seeing him now on a book that's doing well with Ed, who's a writer who I think is great. And, opening little opportunities for other people that, it's I'm used to doing creator-owned wise, or trying to do it creator-owned wise, when it's a company giving you the space to actually do this stuff, build stuff with talented people.
Yeah.
It's pretty fucking cool, I guess one last question is, where do you go next? Like, you started all these books, whatever. I guess you must have started LINNEY Incorporated about 10 years ago.
Okay, 15-ish now.
Okay, probably. So to where, I would say arguably you've built like a body of work, and now like the books you're doing now are very, working on a higher level, say, than they were when you started. Where do you go? Like, do you have ambitions for what you do next? Like, are you just trying to build what you have? Do you have any goals in mind?
I'm really thankful and fortunate for being able to work with Dynamite and Nick Brucci and Joe Rybant. Like they really give me the space to be able to do this many books and to feel creatively free and inspired and things like that. So I want to be able to continue on with that process of all the things that are bubbling there. And then,
well, and the success of books like Gargoyles and Thundercats and whatever's next, surely that puts you in a position.
DuckTales. It's nice. It's nice. It's like I've been very fortunate to be able to work on these projects, and at the same time, I'm having those do well is also very inspiring for me, creatively on other things. I as you can probably tell, like I am a creatively, I'm a, I don't know, creative frog. I like to hop. Around. And so like feeling creative and like something is working in one avenue makes me want to go do something else, and then go do something else, and then go do something else. I'm not a like a full-time professional writer, because I don't want to be, but
you can write when you want to.
I can write when I want to. It just hurts. It just because I'm a very emotional writer. I pour everything out that if something really, if I've written something, it's because I meant it, basically, most of the time. Not every single time, but like, especially now when I want to write something, it's because I really mean it. So I've got I've done a couple Kickstarters, and I've got a couple other projects that are going to be coming out later this year into next year. Just being able to take it for that, it's just being able to make the time and to put myself in the headspace of like, am I ready to put this on the page? And sometimes, I've just got different pots boiling at different times and trying to figure it out. But honestly, the thing that's just next is just like whatever I'm curious about, whatever I'm interested in. And sometimes I'm presented with projects and it's like, I don't know. But then, and I say no to something, and then the next day it's still itching at the back of my brain. And then it's like, oh shit. Now I feel like I have to do it.
Would it be fair to say then that, say, LINNEY Incorporated is like, it's doing what you're succeeding in your goals, because what it's letting you do is having the autonomy over those things you do or don't want to do. Like it is now the success you wanted to be. So now whatever you're working on creatively, be it packaging or writing, it's something that you want to do or you're interested in, which overall just, makes you happy. You're not having to do a license that your creative quality of life is high. And it's because you've built something like this.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's high because I think I'm capable of putting out a lot of work on a very consistent basis, and I think it's pretty high quality, and enough people want to work with me, and that's I think some of that is earned, some of that is luck, some of that is just something I'm just very thankful for being able to do the things that I want and be able to have the job that I wanted since I was 9 years old, So, yeah.
All right, man. Well, I'll leave you alone. Thanks very much for sitting there while I just ask you stuff I've always meant to ask, just never really had an opportunity. So, and yeah, it is interesting to kind of peel things back from the other side of the creative process. So, thanks for making the time, man. Yeah, man.
Anytime. Thanks for having me.
All right. I'll have that script tomorrow, I promise.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, no, it's not happening tomorrow. I will have a cover for you tonight, though. I have to color it once we're done here. I'll start coloring it.
Lovely.
So you'll have that later. That? That's Thundercats Lost 6.
Great.
I said I'd have it today. It's drawn. I just need to color it.
Lovely.
Okay. All right. Thanks a million, man.
All right, bud.